At 3:47 a.m., over the black water of the Strait of Hormuz, the radar picture aboard the US's Curtis Wilbur turned solid red. Inside a reinforced command bunker dug into the limestone spine of Qeshm Island, RGC's Navy General Hossein Tangsiri watched 90 contacts bloom across his tactical display and allowed himself a thin smile. 90 Zulfikar fast attack boats, 40 Shahed 136 drones, already in the air. A wall of fire converging on a single American destroyer, caught in the narrowest stretch of the world's most important waterway. He believed he had finally trapped the United States Navy in the one place its technology could not save it. He was about to learn that the swarm he had spent 8 months building was not the trap, it was the bait. And the trap had been set by the people he thought he was about to destroy. This is the story of the night Iran threw everything it had at one warship off Qeshm Island and lost the entire coastal command network in the process. Looking deeper at the geopolitical chessboard, the timing of this operation was not an accident. By late spring, the Strait of Hormuz had been effectively closed for weeks. A fragile ceasefire was holding by a thread, and both sides were locked in a game of brinkmanship over who controlled the choke point that carries a fifth of the world's seaborne oil. Tehran needed a victory. It could broadcast proof that it could still make the strait ungovernable for the U.S. Navy. A burning American destroyer on Qeshm's doorstep would be worth more than any negotiation. That is why Tangsiri chose the swarm. The doctrine came straight out of the lessons of the Red Sea and Ukraine. You do not beat a billion-dollar warship with another warship. You beat it with mass. 90 boats and 40 drones, each one costing a fraction of a single American interceptor, all arriving at once. The math of saturation was on Iran's side. A destroyer carries a finite number of missiles. The swarm only had to outlast the magazine. But the most important goal was never the destroyer itself. Tangsiri wanted to prove a principle, that the age of the American carrier strike group in the Gulf was over, and that the future belonged to cheap, swarming, expendable systems coordinated from hardened bunkers Washington could never reach in time. He had built the perfect asymmetric weapon. He had just never asked what the Americans wanted him to do with it. At 3:51 a.m., the swarm opened fire. Aboard the Curtis Wilbur, Captain David Rourke stood at the center of the Combat Information Center, hands clasped behind his back, watching the threat count climb. His tactical action officer, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen, called out the first Salvo 4 Noor anti-ship missiles inbound from the Qeshm coast, sea skimming 9 miles and closing. Engage with SEM-2. Birds away, Rourke said. His voice did not rise. 2 interceptors left the forward launch cells. 2 Noor missiles vanished into fireballs over the water. But behind them came the boat's 40 knots, line abreast, 12.7mm guns already winking in the dark. Chen reported the magazine count out loud. At the current expenditure rate, the Curtis Wilbur would be dry in under 4 minutes. 40 drones were still inbound. The phalanx was already spinning up. On Qeshm Island, General Tangsiri leaned toward his radio and ordered the second wave released. He told his subordinate, Captain Reza Mahdavi, that the American ship was now committed and could not withdraw through the minefield behind it. He believed he had won. But here is what Tangsiri did not see and what you absolutely don't want to miss. Hit that like and subscribe button right now, because what the United States Navy did in the next 9 minutes off Qeshm Island will be studied at war colleges for the next 50 years. What General Tangsiri could not see was that the Curtis Wilbur had never been alone. 11 days earlier, the destroyer had been deliberately positioned as the most visible, most tempting target in the entire strait. A lure dropped into the water on purpose. 300 feet beneath her keel sat the Virginia-class attack submarine USS Montana, commanded by Commander James Okafor, silent, listening, mapping every Iranian emission for the past week. and in a windowless room at the Office of Naval Intelligence in Suitland, Maryland, Commander Mira Said had been waiting 8 months for exactly this night. Said was a signals intelligence officer who had written a threat assessment the previous autumn arguing that Iran's swarm doctrine had one fatal flaw. 90 boats and 40 drones cannot coordinate themselves. They need a command node. They need one bunker, broadcasting on known frequencies, lighting itself up like a lighthouse the instant the swarm launched. They can't run the swarm without talking to it. Said had told the admiral, who finally read her paper. The moment they attack, they tell us exactly where the brain is. The admiral had authorized the operation in 4 words. Now, off Qeshm Island. The brain was screaming into the night air on every frequency Said had predicted. And the United States was recording all of it. At 3:54 a.m. Captain Rogiv gave the order that flipped the entire engagement. He did not order the Curtis Wilbur to flee. He ordered her to hold to keep firing, to keep the swarm committed, to keep General Tangsiri talking to his boats. Every second the destroyer survived was another second of Iranian command traffic flowing into American receivers. Above the strait, an E-18 Green growler from the carrier Abraham Lincoln rolled in at 12,000 feet. Its next-generation jammer did not blanket the sky. It did something far more precise. It selectively jammed the drone's navigation links while leaving Tangsiri's command channel wide open, so the general would keep transmitting, never realizing his own drones were going blind. 40 Shahed drones lost their guidance and tumbled into the sea. Beneath the surface, the Montana fed Okafor's targeting data into the strike network. Commander Okafor had spent 11 days holding his boat dead, silent beneath the destroyer's wake, running on the battery, ventilating only when the swarm's own engine noise masked his signature. Overhead, a P-8A Poseidon cross-referenced every emission against Said's 8-month-old frequency map. The picture assembled itself in real time. Not just the Qeshm command bunker, but every relay station, every coastal launcher, every fiber junction feeding the swarm. Chen called out the moment the kill chain locked. Full network solution. We have all of it. Rourke acknowledged in 3 words and told her to hold the line 1 minute longer. Every additional second the destroyer stayed in the fight was another node. Tangsiri lit up, trying to keep his collapsing swarm coordinated. The boats kept coming. The phalanx shredded the closest at 500 yards, brass cascading across the deck. But the swarm was no longer the point. We didn't sink the swarm. We let Iran hand us the map to every command node on the coast. By 3:56 a.m., the Curtis Wilbur was still afloat, still firing. Scarred but unbroken, and 300 miles of Iranian coastal command had just been recorded in perfect detail. But the survival of the Curtis Wilbur was not the masterstroke. The masterstroke came in the next 90 seconds, and General Tangsir never saw it coming. Because the moment his command bunker on Qeshm Island lit up to coordinate the swarm, it stopped being a hidden fortress. It became a verified GPS coordinate, and it was not alone. Said's map had turned every node Tangsiri used that night into a target folder. At 3:57 a.m., a flight of Tomahawk cruise missiles launched from the Montana and a second destroyer over the horizon, not at the boats, not at the drones, but at the network itself, the Qeshm command bunker, the coastal relay stations, the fiber pipe junctions. Every piece of infrastructure that made the swarm a swarm instead of 90 disconnected boats. Inside the bunker, Captain Mahdavi watched his displays go dark, one by one, and shouted across the room. General, we've lost Qeshm Relay. We've lost Bandar Abbas. They're not hitting the boats, they're hitting us. Tangsiri finally understood. The swarm had never been the target. The swarm had been the trigger, the one thing guaranteed to make him switch on every command node he owned at the same instant, so the Americans could see them, fix them, and erase them in a single coordinated strike. He had not been trapping a destroyer. He had been illuminating his own command structure for the people who were waiting for him to do exactly that. By 4:02 a.m., it was over. The surviving Iranian boats scattered back toward the shallow coastal waters. Leaderless and blind, their coordination network gone, Iranian state media announced the next morning that a heroic operation had forced an American destroyer to retreat in disgrace. The satellite imagery told a different story. The Curtis Wilbur still on station, and the Qeshm command bunker reduced to a collapsed crater of reinforced concrete. The cost exchange was the part that mattered. Iran had spent 8 months and an entire swarm. The United States had spent a handful of interceptors and a salvo of tomahawks and walked away with the location of every coastal command node Tehran had left in the strait. We didn't win the battle off Qeshm. We made Iran show us where to win the next 10. So here is the question for you. Should the US have struck the command network the moment it lit up? Or was letting that destroyer sit in the crosshairs as live bait a step too far? Even if it worked, type A if you think the trap was genius. Type B if you think it gambled a crew of 300 sailors. Let us know which call you would have made. If you think this tactical breakdown revealed the most shocking naval secret of the year, hit that like button and subscribe to Navy Vector right now, because the next classified mission file is already unlocked, and you won't want to miss what the US Navy did when Iran tried the exact same trap a second time. Bye for now, and see you on the next mission. Disclaimer: this video presents a dramatized military scenario created for storytelling and defense analysis. It combines real-world military platforms with fictional and speculative elements. Any U.S. Department of Defense imagery used does not imply DoD endorsement. Please keep the comments respectful.